The seeds of misfortune within peaceful soil can be easy to overlook. So wise words from a wise master, my friends. Sagely advice from a sagely dude. Hi, I'm Mike. Welcome to Bonsai Pop, and today we are doing something very special. We're going to be going over The Elder from Star Wars Visions as part of the 2021 In a Tube anthology. So make sure to check out the rest of the playlist after you're done watching this video for specialized coverage of every single part of Visions. It's awesome, and it's all being done by some of our best friends on the platform. You're gonna love it. I mean, you're gonna love it. It's the wars, dude. Anyway, this is The Elder from Studio Trigger. Let's get into it. So most people familiar with our content know that I'm a big Star Wars fan, but probably not exactly how big of a Star Wars fan I actually am. I mean, look at this shit. Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars. Goes on and on. When I was a kid, I was lucky enough to see the original trilogy in theaters. When I was 10, I started reading my dad's books and continued to keep up with the post-Return of the Jedi storyline until Disney bought Star Wars and threw a lifetime of enjoyment away in favor of their, well, inferior version of the future. As a massive consumer of anime and manga, I've always dreamed of a Star Wars anime, and hey, dude, guys, we're living in that timeline now with 9 animated shorts from some of the most prolific studios in Japan, let alone the world. But when it came time to pick what we personally wanted to cover, I chose The Elder. A, because this dude looked sick, and B, because it sounded Star Wars, you know what I mean? Anyway, it turns out that I chose right. Out of all of the Visions, The Elder and one of the others were undeniably Star Wars, while other works like The Twins, well, I'm sure you've already watched that. The crazy thing is that both The Twins and The Elder were produced by Studio Trigger, and you could not have two more different representations of a studio. But it's all thanks to the individual, again, visions, of the writers and directors for each of these shorts. The Elder was created by Masahiko Otsuka, famous for his work on Eva, Gurren Lagann, B&A, Kill la Kill, the list goes on. Regardless, The Elder is a far more subdued but far more beautiful look at the Star Wars universe, as it was intended to be portrayed from the initial launch of A New Hope back in '77. It is also extremely lore friendly, lending credence to exactly how big a fan of the extended universe Otsuka-san must have been. Thanks to that, we are able to look at this short story with much more understanding rather than have it just be a simple moral lesson like it comes off to maybe people who don't know Star Wars that well. The Elder stars Padawan Dan Gvash, an older teen, and judging by the length of his braid, likely to soon become a Jedi Knight. He's joined by his master, Tajin Kralser, an understated but imposing Jedi Master from the Republic and remade Jedi Order. Tajin is revealed to be an expert on all things Outer Rim, and to give some context, much like our own galaxy, the Star Wars galaxy's center or core is filled with many planets, while the Outer Rim is much more remote and widespread. Tatooine, for example, is on the Outer Rim, and in the Milky Way, so is Earth. Now, Coruscant, which is the center of galactic politics and wealth, is well within the core worlds, leaving the Outer Rim as the proverbial intergalactic Wild West. It's where the battle-hungry Mandalorians hail from, the Hutt crime syndicates, and the Sith. Now, I managed to figure out that this story takes place right before the High Republic era, and no, this is not something that has been written in some article or something like that. I did do my own research. As far as the year, it is likely very close to 400 to 450 BBY. Now, BBY stands for Before the Battle of Yavin, aka the destruction of the first Death Star that happened in A New Hope. Now, this time period was the lead up to the height of Jedi activity and expansion into the Outer Rim. We know that this expansion hadn't already fully begun because Tajin is seen as a bit of an eccentric by his Padawan due to his extensive exploration and research into the Outer Rim, which at the time is virtually unknown to the galaxy at large. It's during their long journey that Tajin is struck by a powerful wave of dark energy, the likes of which he had never felt before. But in contrast, Dan, who, like I said, is an experienced Padawan, felt nothing, which is a subtle revelation of exactly how powerful Tajin is with the Force. The two head to a remote planet named Habbo to investigate the disturbance in the Force, where it's revealed that an old man had landed on the planet prior to their arrival. Deciding to split up, which is a subtle indication of Tajin's faith in his Padawan, Dan goes to the mountains looking for the old man, while Tajin waits by the Elder's ship. A ship that strikes an uncanny resemblance to the old Sith ships Tajin had seen in Hollows during his studies at the Jedi Academy. Ships that, according to a discussion between Dan and Tajin, should not exist and were destroyed, quote, hundreds of years ago. Now, the use of specific language in this short is extremely crucial to understanding its placement within the timeline, and after checking, the English deviates very little from the original Japanese. Now, this simple revelation reveals that this is indeed the Republic era. The fact that Tajin is exploring the Outer Rim virtually alone reveals that this is pre-High Republic, but it's the simple mention that the Sith were destroyed hundreds of years ago which gives us a more definitive placement of our story in the greater sequence of galactic historical events. You see, 5,000 years before the Clone Wars, a schism in the Jedi Order led to the formation of the Sith. The exiled fallen Jedi moved to an Outer Rim world named Korriban, later renamed Moraban. On this world, they built up their strength and eventually launched an all-out war on the Old Republic. This culminated in the Jedi-Sith War in 1032 BBY, where the Sith were completely wiped out. However, this wasn't completely thanks to the Jedi. The Sith's inherent desire for absolute power and control, a result of the fear that they tap into while using the dark side, led to constant infighting and their own inevitable destruction. After that, the Republic was rebuilt. It's no longer the Old Republic, now it's just the Republic. And at the time of the Elder, 1032 BBY was hundreds of years ago. Not a couple hundred, not 500, but hundreds. Yet, expansion into the Outer Rims wouldn't happen until 300 BBY at the earliest, leaving us at about 400 to 450 BBY. Basically, a time where the Jedditon deities know only peace, if you get my drift. So, Dan climbs the mountains looking for this mysterious old man when he comes across a murdered corpse of a Vamga, a vicious predator with hide too thick to be cut by anything but a lightsaber. It's then he's confronted by the Elder, who is indeed a Sith. Now, this isn't confirmed in the short, but instead is once again revealed by subtle context clues for hardcore fans. The use of dual weapons is almost an exclusively Sith trait, being that it clearly shows their aggression and penchant for offense. This also led to the forbidden forms of lightsaber combat utilized by the Sith during the final war with the Jedi, forms so ferocious that they had to be countered with light whips, a weapon that wouldn't be seen again until the assassins of the Galactic Empire showed up much later. Now, while this old man is a Sith, it's clear that he is not part of the Sith Order. He explains to Dan how the Sith went extinct due to infighting and neglected their destiny. Now, at this time, the Sith Order was not actually extinct, but it had been drastically changed thanks to the first Dark Lord of the Sith, Bane, or Darth Bane. After the fall of the Sith Empire, Bane acquired an apprentice and created the Rule of Two, which is a practice that would eventually result in Palpatine and Vader destroying the Republic and dominating the galaxy under the Empire. This rule stated that there shall never be more than two Siths, a master and an apprentice at any time. However, this old man is alone. His short lightsabers leave a note of sadism in his battle style. He prefers to be up close and personal with those he kills. His murdering of the Vamga is proof of this, as though ferocious, Tajin explains that these creatures aren't aggressive unless provoked. It's clear that this old darkside user likes to test his blades on the most powerful opponents possible, something he makes obvious when his duel with Dan becomes glaringly one-sided. The Elder had called the two out of hyperspace in order to fight, nothing more, nothing less, but he was looking for Tajin. Dan is now just bait and is struck down. So it's here that I would like to take a minute to appreciate the presentation of this piece. And I highly recommend watching it with a solid pair of headphones on, because the Japanese-infused Star Wars symphonic sound was expertly crafted and placed exactly where it needed to be. The burst and hum of the lightsabers is incredibly authentic, and the painted backgrounds lend that classic Star Wars feel of modern antiquity, and the choreography of these lightsaber duels is nothing short of classic. There is no Yoda flippy-dippy fucking all around. Instead, it's so clear that the opponents are wielding their respective aspects of the Force. They're contemplating each other's moves. They're making precise calculations. The Jedi are so calm and stoic with these serene features, while the old man is excited and full of malice, and his form is twisted by age and hatred. He looks like he's straight out of Ninja Scroll. It is awesome. And the Elder is nothing short of perfect in its context, something to truly be proud of. Anyway, Tajin and the old man clash in what I can only describe as one of the coolest lightsaber duels I've ever seen. Tajin never takes his eyes off his opponent or loses focus for a second. It is perfectly executed, and that finisher is so fucking badass. However, with his last breath, the old man detonates his ship, destroying all the information held within its databanks, leaving the two Jedi, because Dan somehow survives, I guess, to ponder exactly what they just encountered. Tajin goes on what seems like a simple moral wrap-up to the story, explaining that what really defeated the old man was age itself, and that all things have their time and must eventually perish and make way for the next. However, again, subtextually, there's something else being talked about. It's alluded to, at least through what isn't said by Tajin in this short, that he may be more aware of what's going on than he's letting on. There's many times where Tajin is about to say something and then doesn't. It's obvious when he's contemplating things but doesn't say something. And this, of course, is typical but annoying behavior of Jedi Masters. Regardless, we know that the first step to the dark side is fear, which leads to anger and then hate, but it is fear that is arguably the most important and ruling emotion of the dark side. And the primal fear, the first fear, if you will, is of death. Death is the greatest unknown, the biological avoidance, the uncontrollable and inevitable end. Now, a common response to fear is a desire for control. You don't need to fear what you have control over, so it has always been the greatest wish for the Sith to conquer death. A feat we see, again, eventually manifest within Palpatine, where in both future timelines, the original and the one Disney fabricated, Palpatine is able to infuse his soul within clones of himself. Death is the reason Anakin Skywalker falls to the dark side in the first place, the fear of Padme's death and his inability to control that. Oftentimes, very controlling people that you will meet in real life have been traumatized by something in the past, and that's how they deal with it. It's not right, it's not good. You probably want to avoid those people, but it is a common thing. But the reason that I bring this up is because the old man, the Elder, who is human, and humans within Star Wars are subject to the same aging process as IRL humans, has intimate knowledge of the Sith over 600 years after their supposed extinction. However, it is also important to note that he is alone. He does not have an apprentice. Therefore, he is not part of the lasting legacy of the Rule of Two. He is on his own. The Elder says that the Sith lost sight of their destiny. But what exactly does that mean? What is the Sith's destiny? Their destiny is to conquer death. If you conquer death, you conquer life forever. The goal is never to wage an assault for absolute galactic supremacy, but instead wage a slow, easy war of attrition to subtly affect and outlast everything else. Now, when the Elder is defeated and dies, his body turns into dirt and clay, and this is something we've never seen before, nor is it a Sith trait in any way. This insinuates that there's something special about this guy, and my theory based on all the evidence and subtext provided is that the Elder came up with a way to artificially extend his life through pervasive use of the dark side. His desire to continue to test his mettle against the strongest foes possible was a defense to counter his fear of becoming weaker as time went on. Being undying doesn't necessarily mean that you can't be killed. So if this old man could continue to go up against more and more skilled opponents, he could prove to himself that yes, he is invincible and will live forever. But the dirt we see his body turn into is likely his true form, already decayed and decomposed beyond recognition. It was just simply held together by his desire to avoid death and the dark side of the Force. Now, Tajin's monologue about becoming old and weak and making way for the next generation of strength, therefore, may not be so much about teaching Dan a little life lesson at the end, but more of an internal reflection on the mistakes of the Elder and the Sith at large. It's the idea of letting go of the fear of nature taking its natural course and accepting what you are, that you are transient. It's to find peace with what you can do during the time that you have. So this monologue at the end is a little Buddhism and a little bit of the Serenity Prayer, but it is very much so the Jedi way. Anyway, guys, I hope that you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for watching. This was really fun. Obviously, we don't get to cover Star Wars stuff like that, so I don't really get to like flex, you know, the Star Wars knowledge that I have that is totally useless now. But I really hope that you check out the playlist for the rest of the anthology. Everybody who worked on this project this year is extremely talented, and I'm personally excited to see their work myself. I'm gonna be watching it like right now. Thanks to Nyes for organizing this, and to our patrons for continuing to support us no matter what. If you're new here and you like this video, I recommend checking out some more after you finish the anthology, and subscribe. My name's Mike, this is Bonsai Pop. Please enjoy the rest of the anthology. The playlist is likely right here on screen. I'll see you next time.